Welcome in everyone to Bet Win Repeat. I'm your host, Hannah Mears. You can follow my social medias at Mears Hannah. We are live on Bet Win Repeat Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. This is a show for all of your betting content, a ton of NFL preseason previews. We also have some of those up on our site right now, as well as our YouTube page. So download that new Picks and Parlays app for all of that new content. It's available on all mobile device platforms. Don't forget, if you're interested in any of our contests, head over to our Facebook pages. Like and join all of those groups. We have weekly and monthly contests that you don't want to miss. Today, joining me on Bet Win Repeat, we have Detroit Lenny and Cam the Man. We are going to be doing all three of us at once here on the show, giving you all of the best content. And guys, there is a lot to talk about, but I want to remind everybody, if they're interested in any of our premium content, to head over to picksandparlays.net. Use that promo code MLB. It's going to save you 20% off of the entire site. Speaking of the MLB, I do want to touch on this. 12 MLB teams scored in double digits for the first time since 1894. There was a ton of high-scoring games last night. And I feel like it's been like that most of this season. We're seeing a lot of high-scoring games, and pretty crazy to also think that the Mets, Tigers, Lenny, your Tigers, and the Giants all finished with a final score of 11-10. So that was the first time that's happened in like 100 some years too, that three teams finished with the same score. So I want your first thoughts. We'll start with Cam on why you think there are so many high scoring games this year, like double digits all at once. What's going on at this point in the season?
They're juicing the balls. No, really, I don't know. It has seemed to be like more in the heat. It's hot everywhere, and the balls were just flying. There was a bunch of teams. I know I watched the Braves. Their pitching was really bad, but the pitching on both sides was really bad. There was errors. That game was 16-13. I was watching the Giants, one of those games you just spoke about. There was two different innings where the Giants would score 3 in the top half. And the Reds answered 3 back. Then the Giants scored 3 in the top half a little later. The Reds came back with two. A lot of teams are hanging crooked numbers. I don't know if the pitchers just don't care or if the ball's just finding the bat. But yesterday was a complete smoke show.
Yeah, even for my Pittsburgh Pirates, who have been on the downslope lately, their ace and Mitch Keller gave up 5 runs in the first inning very quickly. So not exactly what we want to see out of our ace. But Lenny, what about you? I was floored when I saw this. 12 teams in double digits. That's a lot for one day.
So I'll start with saying this. I was on the under 8.5 for the Tigers game. That was a fail.
I was under the 8.5 for the Pirates game as well.
So boom, you're in the same boat. I'll say this. I mean, I expected the Tigers to get some runs. Tariq Skubal's coming back from a rehab. I'm not making excuses, but he was horrible. Tigers bullpen's tired. They've been actually good this year, but are decent, better than they have been. They're not necessarily a dumpster fire. But they've been a little bit better, and they're just tired, and it's showed in this game. And, I expect a lot of runs in today's game from them as well. The Tigers score 4 in the 9th and lose 11-10. So Kansas City's bullpen is really bad. And if the Tigers are scoring that kind of runs in the bottom half of a game, your bullpen's really bad. But the Tigers they didn't have enough. They just don't. Mm-hmm. We didn't expect it. I actually think two things to Cam's point. I think the temperature change has affected, obviously, it's summertime, the ball. But I think the pitch clock has affected people. I think pitchers are kind of hurrying through their motion. Maybe not as many change-outs, not changing the pitch or whatever. We don't have a lot of that. And I think that's really affecting their psyche. And I think it's affecting their performance because when they're throwing, they're just hurrying through the motion, so to speak, what they're not used to. And I think you see it in a lot of these guys. Sandy Alcantara from Miami Marlins, I'm going to bring him up. I think it's really affecting him. Guy who was a Cy Young candidate last year. And
Cy Young winner last year.
Yeah, Cy Young winner last year. And this year he's what is he right now? He's pitching today.
I had somebody actually tweet me last night and say he's
3-8 with a 4.64 ERA. That's not a Cy Young winner.
We've seen Cy Young winner, or I guess you could say nominees last year, guys that were really close to winning that award and played really well, take a really drastic slope this year. And whether or not it has to do with the pitch clock, we don't know. Maybe it could just be a bad year, but I definitely agree with you in the fact that I think it is affecting it more than we're being told it is.
Maybe not performance. I think it has to do with performance ultimately, but I think it's a psyche thing. I really think it's in their head. And baseball players are one of the more traditionally what am I trying to like?
I think baseball players are the most superstitious.
Yeah.
Hockey players will give them a run for their money, but I could make that argument. Baseball, I could agree with that argument. Baseball, so superstitious, and you get in a pitcher's head who's very superstitious about how now he has to increase his rhythm, his whole motion, his whole go through by like say 5 seconds. That's a lot. 5 seconds to us isn't anything, but to them it's night and day. Apparently the game slows down for everybody like that at that level. So, that's a long time. And I think mentally people are having problems with it. That's my point.
I think mentally there's some teams having problems. One of them being the Tampa Bay Rays, 0-6 with runners in scoring position on Tuesday. They're definitely in a little bit of a slump. And the Rangers right now beat the Rays in the first 2 games and are 5-0 since the second half of play. So you see that team coming into themselves a little bit here the second half of the season. But the Rays are 3-10 since July. Will this slump last or will they get their groove back?
I've been high on the Rangers all year. They've been at ATM for me all year. I mean, they really have. Yeah, I mean, for real. Me and Cam have talked about this via text off shows and just like hit the ATM again, aka the Rangers today, and just joking. And I really think they're going to give the Astros a run for that division. And if that's the case, they're going to have to play some of their best baseball coming down this stretch because the Astros, I think, are going to do Astros things.
Yeah, they're sitting 5 games ahead of the Astros right now in the standings as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a tight race come the end of the season. That being said, my 2 favorite bets today I used in contests and everything are the Rangers money line and the Marlins money line, 2 of the teams I just talked about. So I like those teams today, but I don't know.
Cam, why were you so hot on the Rangers? Has this been a day one thing, or is this seeing how they've been increasingly getting better as the season went on?
No, it's been the whole way.
The whole ride, baby.
They're just
it was great.
I think just like what Lenny says, they're giving the Astros hell. I think the Rangers have spent a lot of time the last 5, 8, even decade as that little brother.
Yeah.
I think they're just sick of it. And they're giving everybody hell. The Rays are struggling a little bit. The Braves are struggling a little bit. But, right now in July, right here before this deadline, this is the time to struggle a little bit. It's time to iron out the details and stuff. This isn't a real big deal. The Braves have run away with it. The Rays, they have an issue. They're in the best division in baseball, by far. They're realistically 4 teams in that division may make the playoffs. But no, I've just been right there with the Rangers, rolling with them. They've been fun to watch, and it's just working. Both sides of the dish. Their pitching's been good. Their offense has been fantastic, but they're also playing with like an attitude. Like they're over it. Like they're playing with an attitude. Like the Rangers are really, really good.
They look confident.
Yeah, but you hear
walking with swagger. You know what I mean?
You still hear about only the Rays,
right?
Yeah,
you hear about the Astros.
Yeah,
we have about the Yankees.
We have comments from Michael in the comments saying, I just hopped on the Rangers team total over 4.5, my guy, because I think we're convincing them here a little bit. Be hot on the Rangers. It's a good time to be hot on this team for sure.
Do you guys think they're buyers or I don't think they're sellers at the trade deadline? I think they're in the market for possibly mid-relief or another starter.
See, and I'm not trying to bring them up
today.
But I think the Braves, I think the Rays, I think the Rangers, and a couple of other top tier teams are, even though they've run away, they're way out in front, they look great. I think they're buyers. I think they are going to look for middle relief, maybe another stick, maybe another starter.
Right.
But there's several. I think there's probably really realistically 4.5 teams who can win it all. And
well,
All gonna fly.
Especially when you look at a team like the Rays, like you were talking about the division. The Orioles are also a team that have been getting hot as of late, and they're catching. The Rays need to be careful where they fall apart at this point because they're only 3 games ahead of the Orioles, 4 ahead of the Blue Jays, and that division at any given day can change those standings.
But see, with that being said, the Rays, their fortunes are good because the Orioles have gotten the hell beat out of them the last 2 days by the Dodgers. So, that has coincided and helped out good too. If the Orioles had caught somebody on the back end, this is one of those times. The Yankees are in last place.
Last place Yankees. Yeah, let's call them what they are. Last place Yankees. I just like
what is it? They're in last place, or they're in last place this late in the season for the first time since
they're 9.5 games out.
How long is
a team that has that much money is where that's a huge question mark for me too.
First of all, if we're going to talk about a team with that much money,
I know we're talking about the Mets,
it's
right?
the other New York team, but keep going.
Yeah, that team too.
Understood, 100%. But the Yankees really are going all in on a guy like Aaron Judge who hasn't been active. And so I think this exposed the Yankees for the amount of depth that they have. It has some major flaws in the system. Now, granted, they're sitting in last place, but only one to 3 games really from jumping up to third in the division standing. Yeah. So it's not like they're 10 games behind somebody like the Pirates are, but this is a major concern if I'm a Yankees fan.
It is. But, I get the whole all in with Judge and everything like that. But I think baseball is a really hard sport to just put everything behind one guy.
San Diego Padres.
For sure.
Spend all that money. 10.5 games out of first place after halftime. After
the Padres and Mets are definitely, when it comes down to money and talent, a huge question marks this year that are going to need major reevaluation, especially when you look at the team like a Padres and you see the talent they have. They have big names on that team.
Yeah.
It makes no sense why they are not performing at a much higher level.
It's all about the money.
It's like the guys don't know if they're right-handed or left-handed.
They all got paid. Now they all got a party, and now they're all hungover. I'm telling you, that off season for the Padres was lit. I mean, I wasn't there, but I can only imagine. Yeah. I'm talking like Magic Johnson yachts in Italy type big, and that hangover's still happening. I mean, I was at a wedding 2 weeks ago. I'm probably still hungover from it. So, I mean, imagine that party. So,
To me, just visually, a lot of the Padres don't like a lot of the other Padres.
Yeah,
that's how it looks. That's how it looks. Like the Rangers, those guys like each other. The Braves, those guys like each other. The Rays, those guys like each other. The Orioles, those guys like each other. The Yankees, the Mets, hell no.
You're not wrong. There seems to be a disconnect with the Padres, and maybe that's the problem when you get too many guys who want to be the star on a team and they are not clicking. And maybe that's a classic case of what the Padres have going on. I like that point a lot, Cam. Somebody who, when we're talking about people getting paid, we're talking a lot about money. People who aren't getting paid are the NFL running backs right now, 3 of the best in the league, including 2 guys who have, in my opinion, had a make or break year last year, and they both made a case for themselves in Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley. Josh Jacobs was on his contract year, and everyone said he really needs to have a year. At times, Josh Jacobs was the most consistent and best running back in the league on a team that was not performing well. And Saquon Barkley was the New York Giants for a very long time and is still a huge key component to that offense. Tony Pollard thrown into that mix as well, and he stepped up in times of need. Why are these guys not getting paid? I know the argument of maybe running backs are just not as important to an offensive scheme anymore, but I also would contradict that. So in your opinion, what do you think are the biggest reason they're not paying these guys right now?
I mean, I personally think it's all about supply and demand. I mean, it'll take you to, whatever you want to sell, whatever you want to start a business as. The more rare your skill set or product, the higher the value. And so if there's more running backs that are pretty talented out there, I mean, there's Josh Jacobs finishes with 1,653 yards. Derrick Henry, 1,538. Nick Chubb, 1,525. Saquon, 1,312. Miles Sanders, 1,269. Separate those guys by a couple hundred. Those two of those five guys aren't playing right now and don't want to sign a contract because there's just so many of them where a slot guy, a smaller receiver, a fast guy. I mean, the game has evolved into more of a passing attack. 20 years ago, ground and pound. It was running back after running back. Now it's a running back committee. And I just think, if everybody's got a Ferrari, it ain't that expensive anymore. You know what I mean? And those guys are definitely Ferraris. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they are, but that's not to value of that Ferrari has to go down. They have to understand. And I understand their argument. I know you're a running back. Najee Harris spoke up on Twitter and said, I stand with my running back guys, or however he worded it. And I understand them wanting to, their value should be paid more, but I don't know if that means it's going to, because it's right, don't make it happen.
Yeah, Najee Harris's contract is going to be interesting when that comes up next year, but he needs to have one hell of a season to have any say in how much higher that goes. Cam, what is your initial thought on all of this?
Yeah, just piggybacking off of Lenny, 25, 30, 35 carries isn't even a thing. Like, I remember back in the early 2000s when Warwick Dunn came to Atlanta, in his contract he was guaranteed something like 28 carries a game. Like, he had to have it. And, Michael here in the chat, it's all scheme and it's all formation and it's all this and that. And there's so many mobile quarterbacks now.
That's
there's so many quarterbacks that on the fly can serve as a running back, and teams would rather have that slot or have another tight end or have something. And then a lot of teams even motion their running back out of the backfield. This is fixing to be Saquon's 6th year in the league. He's already made close to $40 million. He's going to get he's due to get 10 this year. He's missed a ton of time. His leg almost fell off the one time. It's fantastic. He came back from that injury. It was gruesome. It was terrible. And it does seem, much like you said, he returned to form last year. But there's so many running backs. There's so many running backs. There's so many running backs, and there's so many running backs. And then what makes it harder for these guys is there's so many young running backs.
Yeah.
Healthy, fresh, for a year or two, they can get cheap. Yes.
That are willing to do whatever.
Listen, here's the plan set of every GM in the NFL right now when it comes to running back. Get a young stud. Play him for whatever that rookie contract is. I think you get 3 years, and then you can franchise tag him on the 4th year and maybe the 5th. And by then, really, he's beat up anyway. And then you do it again, repeat, and then you get the next guy. So their shelf life is 5 years, say 4 years. They don't want that guy that's been there 20 years. It's not like that. Not to mention, like, talk about schemes. It's a whole that, you can only give the ball to him so many times. So if he's looking for X amount of carries, and now you factor in those runs from those option guys, and of course, for an offensive coordinator, you want options in an offense. You just want as many as possible.
I agree with all of this, and I do agree that that's why they're not getting paid. The only thing that I think about the Giants right now is Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones, in my opinion, is not a franchise type of put everything into type of quarterback, which is probably the only player right now that I could say maybe I agree with them not signing for something is probably Saquon Barkley, because he has been the heart and soul of that team. When you look at the New York Giants, when you talk about their offense, look at their receivers that have been consistently hurt the past 2 years. I know Saquon was hurt too, but he was the heart and soul of what that offense was last year. People can say what they want about Daniel Jones, but when you talked about the Giants and their high impact players, Saquon Barkley was number one on that list. And he is a game-changing type of player. So I think, if anything, I think he's in an unfortunate situation where running backs, like we said, there's a pool of them. But in his particular case, I would want them to look at that more of pay the player, not the position, because I do think he's a significant component to the success that team had last year.
I love that. Pay the player, not the position.
Yeah.
And I understand
agree with that. I agree with that. But it's just hard. And see, Saquon's been through this already.
Mm-hmm.
Saquon more or less is kind of leading this charge. But it does need to be a pay the player, not the position, because like y'all watch a ton of games. How many teams on 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, and 4th and 1 throw the ball?
Yeah. Like that was never a thing 20 years ago.
Throw the ball.
I mean, it was
tight
tight
ends,
formation, 2 tight ends, fullback, Mike Allstott up the middle.
Let's roll. Ball forward for a yard. No, like they're dropping, and it's not even like a quick pass. Like they're dropping back and taking a shot.
Yeah,
my biggest thing is, and I still think it's stupid, is the Super Bowl when Russell Wilson got picked off and had the beast behind him.
Now that's just bad play.
Dumb. And I won $800 on that because I had the Patriots money line. Me and my friend Ron went nuts.
There you
That's
go.
just dumb. But I think around that time, and now Lamar, Pat, even Danny Dimes, like all these guys that are in the league. What's his name in Buffalo? All these guys that are in the league.
Allen,
they can just get it on their own. They can drop back. Whoa, nothing there. Boom. Run out for 12 yards.
We're seeing the quarterback. We talk about running backs a lot right now. We see the quarterback position evolve. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're changing to the guard here from the Manning brothers to Tom Brady, who stuck around longer than he should have, whatever, to those, Ben Roethlisberger type situational guys where they're big, they're pocket passers, they're just stay there. Those guys that are bridging the gap is a Kirk Cousins. He's kind of that guy, I mean, whatever. But Jared Goff is that guy too. I mean, he's just going to stay there, but then you got the Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons of the world, the Josh Allens, like you mentioned, who can, it's 4th and 2 and they're on the goal line. It's a swing going one way or the other. And he might throw it. He might run for it. He might pass it. He might hand the ball off. You don't know what they're going to do, and it's all about options for them.
I think that's why we're seeing so many really good quarterbacks or quarterbacks that were supposed to be really good start to fall off now and are becoming a little more irrelevant a bit quicker. We're not seeing the dominance displayed for as long as we did with the guys like Tom Brady and the Ben Roethlisbergers of the world, because we're seeing this evolution of an offense and the turnover rate. Somebody that is getting paid right now is the Steelers defense. Alex Highsmith now is the next guy, a 4-year, $70 million contract. And value that edge rushers and linebackers are adding to the NFL right now is going to be, in my opinion, becoming one of the highest paid positions in the future, because everybody's wanting those high impact players like a TJ Watt, like a Max Crosby, like somebody who is going to, like an Aaron Donald, let's say. That defense is becoming that much more important. But here's my question. Why are we paying so much for big defensive players when we are talking so much about this being an offensive league?
Because there's no running backs. Because these guys have to be mobile. These guys have to contain these quarterbacks that can run a 4.4 and then throw the ball 60 yards on the run.
Yeah, on the off balance.
Throw it 60 yards on the run into a cup.
Yeah, exactly, on a dime.
Like, that's why.
Yeah. It's insane, but it's a good point. And I mean, just to shout out a guy like Alex Highsmith coming off his rookie deal. He was a 0-star recruit out of high school, walked on in college, and now is getting paid the big bucks in the NFL, rightfully so. 14.5 sacks last year when the Steelers were struggling without TJ Watt. He stepped in, deserved his money. But here's what I would like to see from the Pittsburgh Steelers this coming season. You've paid your defense. If everyone's healthy, you should have the best defense in the league. Next year, I would really like to see them pay some big bucks for some really good offensive guys. And I'm hoping Kenny Pickett's the solution so then they can find him those pieces at wide receiver. But I think this could be a really interesting season to see how the Steelers will invest next year. Will they pay Najee Harris? Will they go ahead and maybe give a guy, maybe their tight ends more money? Maybe they'll go find a really solid wide receiver, which is what I think will be probably priority next year, depending on how Deontay Johnson plays out, what George Pickens will do. Maybe they'll give him the big bucks when his rookie deal runs out. So I think that will be really interesting to see which teams are going to be willing to pay for offense in the future and what positions are going to have more value. What team do you think could surprise you in the preseason this year? Or what team are you most intrigued to see play?
I know
Besides
the answer.
Detroit
I know his answer.
Oh, damn.
It's probably like right in here.
We can't pick the Detroit Lions, although it is an interesting storyline coming into this year.
They do have.
But there are some teams I want to talk about. First and foremost, let's look at the Denver Broncos and bringing in Sean Payton. That has to be one of the most interesting storylines to date. Will he change Russell Wilson? Because the Broncos, it's make or break for them, in my opinion. They don't have a lot of money and they don't have a lot of draft picks. So they've got to make do with what they have. And if it doesn't work this year, they could be in trouble for a very long time.
I think they're still going to struggle. I think, I've never been a fan of his, but I think Russell Wilson just looked really bad last year.
Mm-hmm.
Russell Wilson made me think a lot of Darren Williams from the NBA. Darren Williams just woke up one day and was like, you know what? I'm not good anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I quit.
That
mentally checked out.
You said what?
He mentally checked out.
Yeah, and and just like we said earlier with the Padres, Russ got his check. Russ got a crap ton of money. Guaranteed.
This is why the Broncos have no more money at the moment.
Coming.
Yeah,
if Russell Wilson stays out of jail, no matter what, he's going to get all that money.
Yeah,
he knows it.
Broncos to win the West? Absolutely not. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. I didn't buy it last year, thank goodness. And so many people talked about this last year. There were a lot of professionals on television getting paid a lot of money and made this pick and ended up getting slapped in the face with it. What do I think about Pickett and Pickens? I think this is going to be one of the most dangerous duos in the NFL if it gets called the way it's supposed to, because I think Deontay Johnson gotten paid and not being in the end zone last year, they're going to work a lot of the offense around him. But George Pickens proved to be that guy, and Kenny Pickett has now had an entire offseason and will have the entire training camp to work directly with these guys and really make connections, because there will not be a quarterback battle. So I think this could be extremely dangerous for the oppositions that they'll be playing. I think the way they beefed up the offensive line will give Kenny more time as well. I'm very excited to see what happens with this. Cam, what were your thoughts? You were going to say something about this.
I was going to say, in regards to a young guy, when they're going into camp and there's no quarterback battle, I think that allows a young guy to grow and to take bigger bounds.
100%.
It's your boat. It's your boat. Figure out how to drive it. I think that helps a lot.
Definitely. I think there's a lot of that on the Steelers team this year. And something really interesting I talked about that they did is every young guy that they brought in, they have complimented them with a veteran. And I say young guys as in the young, really important key components to this. Look at Joey Porter Jr. Well, they also brought in Patrick Peterson, so they can take some pressure off of him. They have someone to guide him through this. When you look at Broderick Jones, they brought in the Isaac Seumalo's of the world, guys who have been and won in the Super Bowl. People that are just really big veteran presence are there to help mold these young guys. And I think that's going to help the Steelers tremendously. And then when you talk about a guy like Kenny Pickett, not having a quarterback battle, he also has a backup quarterback in Mitch Trubisky who really believes in him. And I think Mitch Trubisky is finally just comfortable being a number 2. I don't think Mitch Trubisky wants to be number 1. I think he's ready to be in a role, be on a winning team, and just be where his feet are at the moment. And I think that's going to take so much pressure off of Kenny Pickett this season. Watch out for the Steelers. I think all of this is a really good recipe.
I'm gonna say something that you're probably gonna like. I think they win the division. I
have
really
Steelers as my big goal prediction starting the season 9-0. So
listen, I think the Bengals
9-0.
The Bengals step back. I mean, they finished 12-4 last year. I think they have a little bit of a setback this year. Okay. I'm not a believer in Baltimore. I just don't think there's enough around Lamar. And that's if Lamar plays all year.
I agree.
And then
he has yet to play.
I don't know how anybody thinks the Browns are going to do anything. Deshaun Watson's been ineffective for 2 years. There's got to be rust.
God knows what he's doing.
Right. So and even if he does play, it's just him. They don't have a lot behind him besides Nick Chubb. So I think Najee Harris I think he plays in a contract year for a contract. And if you just give that man the ball, I believe he could be one of the best running backs in the league. I've been a proponent of his since he came in the league. I mean, I drafted him in fantasy since day one. Me and him are ride or die. Okay, I feel like we're best of friends. But I like the Steelers. I think that offense is dangerous.
They're young, they're dangerous. If the play calling is adequate this year, but here's what I think I can say to that as well, is Kenny Pickett had a lot more freedom toward the end of the season to make some decisions, and I think that's where that helps a lot. Again, having him from the jump at training camp, this is just the biggest reason for me that the Steelers can be really dangerous. The reason I had them 9-0, this had to be my big, fun, bold prediction, right? Everyone's got to make a bold one at the beginning of the year. This was my easiest one to get behind. The Steelers actually have an easier schedule this year than they've had in the past, finally. And in those first 9 games of the season, they're going to be facing potentially a lot of really young or rookie quarterbacks against their defense, who's still up there as the highest paid defense in the league. And if they are healthy, now if TJ Watt and Cam Hayward are healthy, the Steelers should be able to win these 9 games. Right. Their biggest challenges are going to be starting out with the San Francisco 49ers. But the reason I liked them over the Niners was because I think the Steelers offense, like we've talked so much about, can be more competitive this year. But we don't know who the Niners quarterback is going to be. Is Brock Purdy going to be healthy? Who is he this year outside of just gaining a lot of momentum last year? And on top of that, is Trey Lance their solution? Well, then what does he look like in that offense? They have more of a quarterback battle going on than anyone, I think, this season, because you had a guy that took you to a Super Bowl and stepped in. On top of that, the other one I think that I would be worried about is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they took leaps and bounds last year, but the Steelers have them at home. The Steelers also have 4 primetime games at home this season, and a lot of them happening in those first 9 games. And when they play the teams in their division, like the Browns, they get them the second week of the season at home. I'll take the Steelers in that matchup. And then on top of that, they go ahead and get the Ravens right before a bye. That is perfect time to play the Ravens when you know that's going to be a smash mouth football type of game. That game is also at home. They can leave it all on the line and then get a bit of a break. It's really hard for me not to look at a lot of these early games and think, I can't look at one and think, I don't think the Steelers are going to lose. It would be very hard for me to see a completely healthy Steelers team and not want to take them in a lot of those early weeks. And that's my rant.
Yeah, I think if they get to 9-0, they're going to go 10-0. I think they'll be Green Bay.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. But that was just I know it's really hard to go undefeated in the NFL. I know that.
Right. Touching on.
But if it came down to a big, bold prediction and just looking at the schedule right now and what they could potentially see, and with so many unknowns in the first 9 games of those teams that they're playing, I think the Steelers are going to be favored in a lot of those.
Right. I could see a 12-5 season. Let's put it that way. And last year it was 9 and they finished 9-8. Cincinnati won that division at 12-4. You know, and they didn't play that one game, the one with Buffalo. So that's why they're off. Whatever. But yeah, they finished 12-5, 13 5.
I hope they don't finish 12-5.
They could win that division at 12-5.
I hope they don't finish 12-5 and start 9-0 because they'd be trending in the wrong direction.
Well, the end of the season does get a little tougher for them, traveling at Baltimore.
And they're traveling a little bit more. They're I mean, facing teams for a second time.
Yeah, they got last 2 weeks of the season. One's in Seattle, one's in Baltimore. That's a big
leap. Right. New Year's in Seattle, New Year's Eve, and then boom, you got to go all the way back to Baltimore. So that's tough. You know, Baltimore end of the year. December, January. Those games are going to be tough outside games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we even have a comment here. Pittsburgh's favored in 5 of their first 9. Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a really interesting season. This is going to be a team to watch for sure. Even though the Steelers are always somewhat relevant in the Mike Tomlin era, it's going to be really interesting to see. They need to take a bigger step this year in terms of being a dominant playoff team and also taking really big strides to get to the Super Bowl, because I think they're very close. When it comes to making changes in appearance, uniforms have been the big talk as well on social media. The Browns have a new uniform, and it is badass. I'm not going to lie. Do I ever want to say anything nice about the Cleveland Browns? No, but I will commend them on these uniforms. I was such a fan of them. I think they look really cool. If anyone hasn't seen them, they're all white, really cool little striping details. I thought they were even cooler than the Seahawks throwbacks until I saw the Oregon State comparison. Then I thought, okay, maybe it's not as creative as I thought it was. But what were your initial thoughts? Do we have a picture to show everybody of what these Browns uniforms look like, Lenny?
I'm working.
What was the comparison you said? To who?
Oregon. So Oregon State, the Beavers white uniforms look very similar to these Cleveland Browns uniforms. Minor differences, to be honest, between the numbers and things like that. But I think I think they were really cool, though. I'm not going to lie. I did like the way the Browns approached this, because from some of the ones that I saw last year, some of the helmet changes, I wasn't a huge fan of some of it. But I do think they look really cool. So
I can see the Browns. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're kind of rocking.
Yeah. The gray ones don't suck.
Kind of.
Yeah. This was marketed beautifully as well. I think it's very on brand for what the Browns are.
I think it's great. I love the all whites. All white. I like Cincy's all white too. The Bengals have an all white that's really good.
Those are dope.
Yeah, right. Like the all white. That brown. I get
the Brock lettering's cool. Like the numbering on there. I really like it. Big fan. And Lenny, while you're at it, definitely look up the Seattle Seahawks throwbacks uniforms as well, because they're pretty cool. I can't lie. From the front, the only thing that throws me off a little bit is I'm maybe getting an Indianapolis Colts vibe, but then when you really look into the details, you're seeing those sea greens and blues, and I think they actually look cool, and they're not what you would expect from Seattle because they're so flashy and neons and everything all the time, but they really did pay homage to the true throwback, and I think it's pretty cool. So wait for Lenny to pull that up. I know there's a video, but there's still pictures too that do it justice, Lenny.
Get the video.
Just looking through there. But these ones were cool too. I think they have the blue jersey, the white pants, and then the details similar to what the Browns are doing. But I like these alternate uniforms. I think it's fun. I think it's exciting. I like having this stuff up here. Yeah, there we go. I like them.
Yeah, it's the 90s to look for them. It's very, very throwback. I get it. Show me the picture. Yeah. Well, this was
very
whole commercial.
Yeah. The only thing is, like, when you see it from a distance, you might think like Giants or Colts or something. I think just because that green, I always feel like is what we're used to seeing, that more dominant color.
Very Oregon Ducks. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Right. But I do like it. I'm a big fan. What are your thoughts?
I'm always a fan of stuff like that.
I love it.
It gets very redundant seeing the same stuff year after year, week after week.
I agree.
But at the very same time, don't wear that other stuff every week. Don't ruin it. Just like the Bengals whites. Don't do it all the time.
Right. You should just do it if you get a Monday night game or Thursday, like alternative jerseys.
I was like prime time Sunday night, Monday night.
Yeah, primetime games.
Yeah.
Speaking of football, the last thing I want to talk about here. Did you guys watch Quarterback on Netflix yet?
Yes.
So I only watched one episode, and that was it.
My biggest takeaway from this, and I want to hear Cam. No, there's a bunch of them.
There's
like already?
Yeah.
Oh, I've only seen the one. Okay.
Oh, guys. The first thing I have to say is I love Kirk Cousins. It is very hard not to like a guy like Kirk Cousins when you watch this. He is everybody's like typical. He is basically a theater kid that accidentally turned out to be really, really good at sports.
He's just happy to be athletic.
It is the best mesh of a human being you could ever see in your whole life. You see the post game of Patrick Mahomes going home to hundreds of people in his house, and then you see Kirk Cousins going home and his little son's building him a bonfire in their backyard and their
fire pit, cool by the lake.
I just love that his wife picks his outfits out for him, and she's like, "We're just regular people. We stop at Target and Sam's Club." And I'm like, man, Target just got some free advertising. Like
Target, Kohl's,
you like that, don't you? You like that, don't you?
He wore some shirt after a game, and they gave him the meme, and they were like, "Oh, Kirk Cousins is rolling in that Kohl's cash," and I was like, "Stop hating." I was like, I showed my wife. I'm like, I kind of like that shirt. She goes, "You would," and I'm like, "Whatever." I got taste, dad taste.
In a year, in a world where you can be anything, be yourself, that is Kirk Cousins to a T, and I am obsessed.
I agree with both of y'all. Like Kirk Cousins, he's just a regular guy who just messed around and got a hand cannon, and
it's great.
Works hard. He does work hard, and
listen, he might choke in the big games, whatever. But he's from a Michigan State Spartan. So, I mean, even though he's in my division and he's a rival with the Vikings and all that, like, you can't watch that show and not be a Kirk Cousins fan. And you know what else that show is solidified is Patrick Mahomes has all the talent in the world. He's also a douchebag.
Yes. I wasn't going to use that word to say it, but it makes Patrick Mahomes a less likable person. And I say this because every single play that you see Kirk Cousins make, he's saying it's this person, it's this guy, good job to them. When you see Patrick Mahomes make a play, and I get
that.
It takes nothing away from Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback, and the talent he has. He is something we will probably never see again in our lifetime of a quarterback. He is fantastic, and I enjoy watching him play football. But every single comment after a big play is, I'm like that. I did that. I do this. This is my game.
You woke up the wrong beast.
You woke up the wrong guy. You're talking.
So
you're
much
talking.
me.
But wait,
as a fan, I can't
punch me.
Yes.
Yeah, don't hit me.
It's very me. I'm like, you are lucky that a guy like Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce on a lot of those plays.
You need to be bailed out.
Yeah, not that Patrick Mahomes isn't one of the most incredible players we've ever seen. I get that. But I do not like the constant of me. And Marcus Mariota is also a sweetheart, really hoping the best for him. And I don't understand why he got a bad rep for walking away when he did, because if anything, he's making himself healthier to go get that surgery and get money for himself. I'm convinced something happened at that meeting, in that meeting where Atlanta was telling him they were going to draft a quarterback next year.
Yeah, right. I also don't and nothing against him. I also don't understand why they chose Mariota.
Mm-hmm.
Because really he is by far the third guy in that show. Like, it's not close. And
I think they did this to find a top tier guy. Then you have a mid guy like Kirk Cousins. Then you have someone toward the bottom. I think that was the theme that they were going.
You got like a veteran guy in Cousins. Mm-hmm. You got that new young talent guy. It's already won 2 rings. So,
and then you have someone kind of on the cusp. Yeah.
And then you got Mariota. That's just a blue collar kid. Just wants to play football. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
And I will say, Patrick Mahomes probably has. Nothing against these people, the worst crowd around him. He does no wrong. There is no.
Yeah, it didn't do his wife any justice being on this show. I'll say that. I mean,
said what?
It didn't do her any good to be on this show.
No,
his wife.
But I did read.
They
did make it a point for his brother not to be there, not to be around. Like, he is in some clips, and you can see him in the group.
Yeah.
But coming into it, a lot of people thought his brother was going to get to talk and be, on the camera. But they've made it a point. No.
I think mentally he's going through something to where that just wouldn't have been the best decision to put him in front of that. So thoughts and prayers to anything that they're going through, because I think he's got some things going on. But I do agree with the people, the best people not being around them are you're God's gift to the world all the time. And I think that's not always a good thing. So though he is ingenious in the football mind, and it's very cool to watch, get that up close feel for Andy Reid and the Chiefs, I appreciated more getting to see how the game went with the decisions Andy Reid was making rather than I did focusing on Patrick Mahomes and what he is.
Yeah.
It gives me a very Hard Knocks feel.
On the field, I want him on my team. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I want that guy on my team every day, all day. But off the field, we're not hanging out.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I just don't get that. Kirk Cousins, I probably want to hang out off the field with and not on the field. I'm going to be honest with you. Like,
Kirk Cousins
I could play cards with him at a barbecue.
I think Kirk Cousins is the guy that shows up to a dinner with, 5 of his wife's friends, and all 5 husbands are dressed alike.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Kirk Cousins is.
And they're all
how they pull the swap, hey, wear this shirt, and all the dads show up dressed alike. That's
his wife literally picks out his game day outfits.
I love it. I'm here for it.
And then what's crazy is she showed all the choices, and from a distance,
what the options were. Yeah.
From a distance, it realistically could be the same shirt.
Yeah,
it's just a different cut. It's and they're color coded and shit. And I'm like,
she's into it.
Yeah.
She was a nice lady, but we got a big game this week, so we're gonna.
I can't talk too much trash.
We're gonna pull up the plaid for the game this week. I'm here for it. I love it, guys. Watch more than one episode because there's so much more to consume in that. Shout out to Shannon Furman, who is a really close friend of mine and colleague. She was the helped produce that and directed, and she does all of Hard Knocks as well as Hey Rookies. So she's phenomenal from NFL Films. Really cool to get to see all of that come to fruition. This is Bet Win Repeat. We are live Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to our rant about all things MLB, NFL, and everything else that comes to mind. I am Hannah Mears. That's Lenny. That's Cam. Lenny. This has been Bet Win Repeat. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. Download the new Picks and Parlays app. And of course, head over to picksandparlays.net. Use promo code MLB. Saves you 20% off the entire site. We will see you next time.